the Happy Scientist podcast. Each episode is designed to make you more focused, more productive, and more satisfied in the lab. You can find us online at bitesizebio.com/happy scientist. Your hosts are Kenneth Vogt, founder of the executive coaching firm Vera Claritas, and Dr. Nick Oswald, PhD, bioscientist, and founder of Bite Size Bio.
Hello, this is Sky Marshall, a content creator at Bite Size Bio, welcoming you to this Bite Size Bio webinar, which today is a live episode of the Happy Scientist podcast. If you want to become a happier, healthier, and more productive scientist, you're in the right place. With me is Bite Size Bio's Mr. Kenneth Vogt. In these sessions, we hear from Ken mostly on principles that will help shape you for a happier and more successful career. And along the way, I am going to try and pitch in with points from my personal experience as a scientist. If you have any questions along the way, put them into the questions box on the side of your screen, and I'll put them to Ken. So today, we will be discussing why be a mentor to other scientists. So over to you, Ken.
All right. Hey, Sky, it's good to have you on the Happy Scientist. Folks, normally my co-host is Dr. Nick Oswald, as you know. Occasionally, it has been Dr. Tom Warwick, but today it's Dr. Sky Marshall. So, lucky me, I'm surrounded by PhDs. So,
lucky me, I get to debut on the podcast while Nick is away.
Well, there we go. So, this is an important question. Why be a mentor to other scientists? Why should you bother? Don't you have enough going on? Haven't you got enough on your plate to not have to go through this extra effort? Well, I will happily acknowledge that, of course, you have a lot on your plate. But the science is a big area, and it's a very collaborative area, and it needs people who are working together. And hopefully, you're going to be one of those people. So I will start off with talking about the environment that you find yourself in. and it may feel like sometimes you look around and go, who are these little snot-nosed kids in my lab? But remember, yeah, they're maybe young or younger than you, yet they're highly educated. In many cases are also PhDs, or at least they're they're postdocs, or they're working on their PhDs, or at whatever level they're at. But if they're in a lab doing this kind of work, chances are they're pretty smart people. Now, are they as brilliant as you? Well, maybe some of them aren't, but the fact is the bar is still pretty high. And yet you got to remember that there's a bunch of things that now that are second nature. You don't think about it very much, but you didn't start off knowing that stuff. You weren't born knowing these things. You may have had a natural affinity for the kind of science that you prefer or that you pursue, but that affinity is not the same as experience. Everybody starts off that way. So rather than lamenting the fact that other people are less experienced than you, don't have the insights that you have worked hard to cultivate already, isn't it better just to look at what is the environment I'm actually in? What is it? What is really going on here? And what do the people in my lab need to know? Now, it may be that you're looking at this from the standpoint of just, I'm just one of several or even many scientists working in this lab on various things. And you may feel like, well, I'm not the PI. It's not my job. Why do I have to worry about this? Set those why questions away for now. For right now, let's just see how it actually is. Do people know what they need to know? Do they know where to go when they don't know? And can you take at least some responsibility for helping people get up to speed? Even if it's not your primary responsibility, can you be somebody that says, well, when you encounter this, hey, check here. We've got a protocol for that. You can find that here. Or here's here's where to find the right equipment to do the things that you're tasked to do. And I mean, just being a good bro, as it were, just being someone who's helpful to others, um, is quite useful, and it will make your environment easier. If you're surrounded by frustrated and people are not successfully completing their tasks, it's a bad environment for you. So it's absolutely in your personal interest to have everybody as up to speed as they can be. Now, maybe you can't take them all the way through what they need to do. Some of that may be on them. They need to step up and they need to learn and that kind of thing. But if you can do some part in that, you make your life easier too. On top of that, you are making their lives easier. And that may well bring you benefits in the future. If you have a reputation of being somebody that can be counted on to help, who has got a collaborative nature to them, you don't know how that's going to play out in the future. And we don't know where these people are going to, or they're going to go in their careers either. You may end up working for one of these people in the future. I know that may sound a little disconcerting, but it's not necessarily so bad. If you find somebody who's young and new in this space, and they're really excelling and they're showing themselves to be creative and inventive and smart and open to learning, those are good people to work with. They're good people to work for. So, even if you don't have the aspiration of being in charge of all these people for the rest of their careers, understand that it's a river we're all jumping in. You just never know which water molecules are going to end up where. So take that environment into account. So did I hear something you wanted to interject there, Sky, or am I just hearing things?
Oh, I was just laughing that it was a river we're all jumping in.
Yes. So I presume you have worked in the lab in the past.
I have. I've worked in several labs. I've had a bit of a funny, squiggly academic career where I did 2 masters actually, and then a PhD that was between a few labs. So one aspect of that is I feel like I never really had a mentor, so to speak, because I was always, leaving the lab to go to another lab. But I've definitely had lots of people that helped me along the way. And then, and the other way, I was thinking, have I mentored anyone myself? But not in a practical, long-term sense. But hopefully I can be helpful. I love that you started with acknowledging how busy people already are, because my experience has just been people rushing around. You can never catch people. You yourself are really busy. It can be quite a stressful atmosphere. But yeah, like you said, it's better to be collaborative, because then it just makes your environment better. So if you are stressed, I mean, it hopefully would help you make your own environment better and would address that fact, that negative part of your experience.
And and if you're having that experience, chances are the people around you are too.
Yeah.
And everybody's on their own. Yeah, they're on their own trajectory. Maybe they're having the exact kind of experience you are. Maybe they've had it in the past. Maybe they haven't had it yet, but they're gonna. So, yeah, science especially requires collaboration. There aren't really many Nikola Teslas anymore who just work by themselves. But, Tesla's an interesting example of someone who came up with all this brilliant stuff, and yet we're still trying to unpack it in many cases, because he didn't collaborate very well with others. And it may well be that some of the things he learned will be lost forever. So, or won't be found again, at least not with his help. So, we don't want to be that. So I want to talk about the notion of lifelong learning, because there are people that are super green, don't know anything. And then there are people that, they've got deep expertise in a narrow area, and we all have these silos of information that we have access to. Some of us are experts on this particular area or that particular area. And maybe it's not even an area that we would call being an expert. Maybe it's more narrow than that. But still, if you're really good at something, if you really know how this particular microscope works, you can be very, very helpful to other people. If you learn some tricks and to make things operate more smoothly or more quickly, I mean, that's what Bite-Sized Bio is all about, is to help people with techniques, right? But you just never know what you know that somebody else doesn't know. So, pardon me. At any given moment, somebody is as far along in their learning as they are. And rather than lamenting that, oh, this person's so green, or they're such a novice, like, well, that's where they are. So you start from there. How can you help somebody from the position they're in? We don't necessarily teach from our own level. We teach people at their level. You know, my kindergarten teacher was a lovely lady, and thank goodness she didn't teach at the university level that she was capable of teaching at when I was in kindergarten. You know, I needed the kindergarten level, and we all have that, and we're all in that situation even now. I don't care how much of an expert you are, there are still things that you don't know, and it's silly not to acknowledge that. And when we look at other people, it's silly for us to be judgmental about it in them. Like, well, if they don't know something, they don't know it. So, I mean, if you think back, even what you were saying a moment ago, Sky, maybe you never had anybody who deserved the title of mentor in your personal case, but it doesn't mean you didn't learn from other people. There were other colleagues who were trained and skilled in certain things, and I'm sure they shared those things with you, and you picked up on it. And if you as a mentee, if you bother to listen to people, if you bother to be appreciative when they help you, you'll find you'll get more and more help that way.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, there's two sides to this: being a mentor and being a mentee.
Yeah, I love that. I definitely feel like I've managed to glean a lot of tips from a lot of people. I'm thinking I'm that sort of personality that I love it when someone helps me out and tells me their experience of something. Like, even if I think I know it, I think I've got that face where I just listen and I'm interested in what they've got to say. So yeah, a lot of people have come up and helped me.
Sure. And if you are also trying to help others, you're going to find some people are like that. They're super appreciative. There are other people that are going to be a little annoyed, but maybe they're not annoyed at you. They're just annoyed at their own present ignorance. They wish they knew. And so, yeah, maybe they act a little abrasive when you try and help them out. Try and give people a little room, a little space to absorb what you're trying to communicate to them, and learn what other people's styles are. Some people want the details. Some people just want, give me the big picture. Try and give to them what they need as they prefer to receive it. Now, that doesn't mean that some people shouldn't do a better job on how they receive information. But again, the fact is they are the way they are as of today, right now. And this is the environment you have to deal with. And if you start thinking about this, I'm helping this person as an investment. That is, if they get better at this, it makes things operate more smoothly in the lab. It makes the entire operation work better. It helps with your collective goals, and it may well help you in the future. Even if somebody is working on something and the only crossover you've got is you bump into them when you both want to use the same piece of equipment, if they can use it more quickly and efficiently, that is good for you, even if it's a project you're not on, because it gets them out of your way later, right? So it's worth doing that. This also opens up the notion that developing your own communication skills is really key. If the sooner they understand what you're trying to communicate, the better off you are. And as you become a better communicator, that is a life skill. It benefits you all across your career, all across your life. So if if you're thinking that I don't want to have to work at it that hard, yeah, you do. You really do. It is such a worthwhile use of your time. And when you get better at it, you get better at it. Especially folks that feel like I'm not a great communicator. I don't really like dealing with people that much. Yeah, because you're not experienced enough at it. Get more experienced at it, and it gets easier. And one day you may find yourself saying, I used to always say I didn't like people and I was an introvert. And then you realize, you know what, that not so much. I'm more comfortable with people now. I'm happier sharing with them. It again, just it makes everything operate more smoothly.
I love that. That was so interesting that the communication skills is something you're going to have to learn.
Yeah.
I was thinking as you were talking that about like approaching people at their level, teaching them from the way they think. I was thinking, oh, see, that's a good skill where a lot of people in academia, they might want to go into lecturing and they
Right.
might want to add that to their cover letter or their CV, that they've
Sure.
consciously tried to communicate in these different types of way.
Yeah, and some writing, or I mean, some communication may be writing. Maybe
Mhm.
you're putting down protocols or recording things.
Giving
It's
people
not just talking, right?
Yeah, so true. And then the communication skills, but that applies to any other career or life.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And again, you don't know where you're going to end up in your career. I mean, there was a time back in the day you started working for the company when you get out of high school, and then you retired with a gold watch, and 25, 35, 40 years. Those days are over. Shoot, they're over for my grandparents. That's how long ago it's been. And I'm older than most people who are listening to this right now. So we got to stop thinking this way, that you don't know what you're going to end up doing in the future. And you need general skills, not just your specialized skills.
Mhm. And to be aware that that's what you are developing.
Right.
Be
Yeah,
conscious.
do it mindfully. Don't just accidentally become a better communicator. Do it on purpose. And because you're going to get there faster if you do it on purpose.
Oh, so true.
So I wanted to have this slide especially because we can listen to this all and go, okay, this is how to do it, but why do it? I don't want to. I don't want to have to be somebody's mentor. I don't want to have to do all this stuff. Well, this is about leadership. And leadership is another skill that you want to develop for the sake of your own career. And it's like a muscle. It has to be worked hard. And yeah, it can be painful when you're doing it. You can be sore afterward. But that's how it is. And there's no sense denying that. Now, if you just want to be a worker bee that keeps your head down and just does the same rote tasks over and over again, there are places for folks that's how they want to do this. But at some point, you might want to do something more interesting. At some point, you might want to make more money. At some point, you might want to exercise your brain more. So don't cut yourself off from those possibilities. At the end of the day, if you want to be just doing the same heads down work and you're comfortable with that, that's fine. But test it out. Make sure that there isn't something else that you might not want to do. So another thing to think about is how you go about this. How do I mentor people? Well, some people need hands-on help, and maybe they're more kinesthetic in their learning style, and they need help in that way. Other people need to hear it. Other need to read it. Other people need to do it with other people. That everybody's got their own style, and you can have your preferences too. Like, I prefer to write things down, for instance, or I prefer to make short videos for something, or I prefer to just talk to somebody. Your preferences are fine, but make sure you match up with what their preferences are too. And if you can have a bigger toolbox, it's only good for you. And again, aids the rest of your career, the rest of your life, to have more possibilities of how you can help someone. Another thing that comes up in this, and you mentioned earlier, Sky, is that I'm sure you are busy, and you may be thinking, I get it, I see the value, but when am I supposed to do this? How do I have the time? It's like, well, you have the time by making the time. You have to take that time to help people when they need it, because often they're needing help not at a convenient time for you, right? But that's when they need it. Now, it doesn't mean you drop everything for everybody and you be a doormat and be walked on anytime somebody wants something out of you. But if you can develop the reputation for being somebody that will bend over backwards to help, that can go a long way for you. And you don't want to develop the reputation of being a doormat. Well, I can take advantage of them anytime I want. It's not like that. But when someone realizes that you're going out of your way for them, they realize that they start to realize, socially speaking, they owe you one. They know that you did something for them at an inconvenient moment for you. Well, guess what? Turnabout is fair play. And it gives you the opportunity to have favors to call in, as it were. And I don't mean that in a controlling way, but it's just good to know that you have a stable of people that you could call on when you need support or help for whatever.
Mm-hmm. Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
I think this actually segues quite well into a question somebody's asked.
Please.
So what you were saying about people being there to help you at the time they need it, that is great for when you're in the same lab and you're maybe colleagues, basically, that are there together. And that's what I imagine this situation is. Maybe someone's sort of coaching a colleague, but somebody's asked, what's the difference between mentoring and coaching a colleague in the lab? Like, is it sort of helping out when someone has a technical problem, or can it be more, I guess?
Yeah, to my mind, coaching and mentoring are different things. A mentor is somebody who is sharing their experience. They've been there, done that, right? And maybe they know some shortcuts. Maybe they know the cleanest way to get somewhere. A coach is something different. A coach is looking in from the outside. It's being another set of eyes on something. So you can think about it this way. Serena Williams, famous expert tennis player, possibly the best female player on the planet, has a coach. Her coach is a good tennis player. Her coach cannot beat her at tennis. But she doesn't need to be able to beat her at tennis to be her coach. So sometimes you're in a situation where somebody's just saying, I just need a sanity check. Could you check over this paper before I submit it, just to make sure I didn't miss something? And you can do that. And you maybe you couldn't have wrote that paper, but you can see if there's something missing, or something is flawed, or something is out of context, or needs context. So that's how I would describe the difference between a coach and a mentor. And in any given moment, you may be qualified to be a mentor for something, or you might more appropriately be a coach in that setting. So, do what is appropriate for, what you're capable of and what the person needs.
So a mentor would be someone who's probably, for example, already done a PhD, or maybe just someone who's already used that instrument.
Exactly. So yeah, and I think those are two really good examples. One of them is very big and broad, and the other is very specific. So you could be mentored by somebody who does not have a PhD, but they know how to use the machine,
Okay. Yeah, I think that's a good differentiation. I'm wondering as well, does it go further into like how probably both a mentor and a coach could do this, but presenting soft skills to them, saying, by the way, watch out, you don't get burnt out, because that's a common thing that happens to PhD students, something like that, instead of just saying, how to use the instrument.
Sure. Well, I mean, you can imagine a setting where you see somebody who's getting stressed and you can tell, and you've been stressed in the past yourself. Maybe you can say, hey, here's what I did when I got stressed that way. But maybe you can see their stress is different than yours was. The only thing you really have share there is they were both feeling, overworked or out of your element. Then it's more appropriate to be in kind of a coaching setting. And so in a coaching situation, you're more asking questions rather than offering, specific solutions. Whereas a mentor is able to offer solutions because they know the solutions.
Okay. And it's probably a lot of people are able to switch between the two.
Sure. Yeah. And don't cut yourself off from accepting mentorship or coaching from somebody who you might think is your inferior. And they might be. But sometimes the janitor in the lab knows stuff.
Yeah. Sometimes, as you were saying earlier, sometimes people have done 2 PhDs. It might be their second time round.
Yeah, and sometimes you just may not realize their experience. Maybe they're quiet. Maybe they don't speak up all the time. But when they do, maybe you should be listening because they know what they're talking about. This goes into one little point I wanted to make too. This is part of collaboration. Collaboration isn't always a formal arrangement where this person is assigned as my mentor, or this is the person I go to for coaching all the time. In the moment, you find out what's working, and we all get on projects and we start to realize this project it's got a lot of moving parts. We need somebody to pick up this part. And maybe you can be that person, or maybe somebody else should be that person, or maybe you can help the person that does do it. Again, collaboration then provides you the opportunity to support others and to receive support. But if you're not collaborative yourself, if you don't foster a collaborative environment, the opportunities for support get restricted more and more until people are working their own little silos and not working together. And for sure, you're not going to get as much done. You're not going to be as innovative. You're certainly not going to make discoveries if all you ever do is cut yourself off from your fellow lab members.
Mm-hmm. So it's a bit like you said earlier, make time to be a mentor. I mean, you could even just make time to be collaborative, and from that, like mentoring chances could arise. But either way, it's a good idea to make time to be collaborative.
And you may tell yourself, I can't make time. I don't have time to make.
That's the hard bit.
But that is, here's a challenging thought. That is just a belief. If you believe you can make time, you will be able to make time. And if you start thinking about your own experience in life, you will certainly find examples where that was true. Sometimes it's like, well, I have to make time. It's life and death, maybe whether literally or not. When things are life or death, we find a way. We make time, or we're not here. We're not here for the next time, right? You're not alive. You're not going to be on that job anymore. You figure it out. So sometimes we have to test out the limits that we believe are in place. Maybe they're not really there.
Yeah. And maybe just starting small. It doesn't have to be now you've become someone who is always around for other people.
Right. Well, yeah, and sometimes that you can't always be around for other people. You have things you have to do for you too. You can do things for yourself. You can do things for others. And some people think that that's the either or. It's not true. You can do things for others and yourself. If you develop a protocol that's useful and you record it, and now other people can use that, but you benefited too because you figured out the protocol. And now there's a protocol available to you. Whether you did it or somebody else did isn't really important at that moment. The fact is, it's still available to you. Just because others can use it doesn't mean you can't.
Yeah, exactly. And it could just be I don't know if you'd feel the pressure if other people are going to use this protocol, I better make it perfect. But actually, it can make a huge difference just to have somebody else's rough draft of a protocol. Maybe they've already left the lab
Yeah.
and they're just looking for any sort of guidance. And if you leave behind that sort of paper trail, that could be really helpful for them, and hopefully not too much extra time for yourself.
Exactly.
There's another
So,
question that's come through.
oh,
Sorry,
please.
just to interject. If this person's asked, what if a person does not want to be helped?
Yeah. I mean, there's lots of reasons why somebody might not want to be helped, that will have nothing to do with you or even with the work. For if they feel like if I accept help, then I look weak, then I look unqualified. Yeah, that could be really hard for them. So the first thing you can do in a setting like that, if you still believe that mentoring them is worth doing, the first thing you can do is just to soften up your approach, and just pull back a little bit. Maybe just ask questions. You don't have to give them answers. Just ask the question, so they will seek the answer. Maybe they'll figure out the answer for themselves, or maybe they'll go, you know what? Why don't you just tell me? And yes, sometimes that kind of interaction could feel a little abrasive. But if we can thicken up our skin a little bit, we may find that, you know what, they're not fighting against me. They're fighting against something else that's inside them that has nothing to do with me, and that makes it easier. Now, there will be times when some people, like, they don't want to be helped, that they're not open to being helped. Well, accept that truth, that this person they don't want to be helped. Now, you may look at in the bigger picture and go, that's a problem. Yeah, but is it your problem to solve? It maybe at that point, it's something that should be shared up the chain. Let management deal with that. If they've assigned you to help somebody and they're resisting, by all means, you should be talking to your boss about that. Look, I'm open to doing this. I'm open to helping them, but they're not open to receiving. You got to help me out here. And if you can do that without judgment, like, look at them, they're arrogant, they're all this and that. Like, doesn't matter. We're going to deal with arrogant people. Boy, in smart people especially, there are a lot of smart people that are arrogant. Get over it.
Yeah.
That's how it is. And it doesn't mean they won't receive. You just have to maybe be a little more skilled. And to get more skilled, you have to have these experiences of trying to do things when you're unskilled.
Mm-hmm.
You may find as you get better at the broad job of mentorship that people are more receptive. It's amazing. People got more receptive. Yeah, because you were easier to receive. So take some personal responsibility for that too, and set the judgment aside. It's not worth it.
Right. It all comes back to actually it's an opportunity for your own growth, and that you should embrace it. And there is conscious decisions you can do to help it work for everyone.
Definitely.
Yeah, I wish I had that sort of perspective,
Well, you can't say, I wish I had it. You could say, I wish I had it in the past, maybe, but there's nothing stopping you from having it right now. You can start anew. So this question and your comments also lead to my final point. I think there's 3 different motifs that can be applied to mentoring. The first is teaching. That is, you're just conveying information, right? The second is shepherding. That is, you're helping them to assimilate information and to guide them toward seeking the right information so that they're actually looking for it instead of just, unwillingly receiving it. And the third level, I will call it mirroring. And when you're mirroring someone, you're just reflecting back to them what they're being. And again, you can only do mirroring without judgment. You got to be free of judgment. You just can't get there. But it is amazing what people can learn when they really see themselves and see what they're doing. Do you realize what you're doing here right now? Do you see why you're having this problem? And by the way, other people are not having this problem when they are using this procedure. Do you see what happened? Do you see why? There's examples of things like why cleanliness really mattered in this particular setting, why you really had to have things clean and clear, why you should be using this instrument rather than that instrument, or this kit rather than that kit. That is the most effective kind of mentoring that you can have. But wherever level you're at in any situation, any of those modes are useful. It's just they can get progressively more useful, and people will seek you out. And people seek you out as a mentor, your reputation goes up, and reputation is very important in the field of science, in your individual lab. If you have a reputation of somebody who knows what they're doing, who gets things done, who's got insight, who's got creativity, that is steroids for your career. So it's all good for you. So if you're thinking, I don't want to have to guide these sheep, you know what? Do it anyway. It's worth it. And at some point you may recognize, actually, this is a more fun part of my job than I ever realized it would be. And you might not even thought there was such a position before, but now that you know about it, get out there and be the best mentor you can be.
Yeah, I was thinking that of my experience of times where I've been mentored, I just wonder if they understand the actual difference they made to me, and how I'll be forever appreciative. I'll always remember. And if I'm ever in a situation where I could be of help to these people, I would jump at it.
Exactly. All right. Well, that's everything I had to say today. Is there anything else you wanted to add, Sky?
Okay. No, I don't think so. That was great.
Well, thank you so much for co-hosting with me today. It's always great to get input from a new voice and somebody who's got a different perspective on things.
All right. Oh, yeah. Thank you for putting everything into words. All these perspective and thoughts that you takes years actually to figure out sometimes.
Sometimes.
Yeah. Excellent. So we've reached the end of our time today. Thank you for your insights, Ken, and thank you to the audience for listening in, for contributing questions, and for listening live or on demand. So if you enjoyed this content, please subscribe to The Happy Scientist on your favorite podcast platform or YouTube. Listen back to our earlier episodes, which are packed with equally useful wisdom. And of course, tell your colleagues so we can help spread The Happy Scientists. Also look out for more live Happy Scientist episodes in the coming months. You can find them listed on events.bitesizebio.com. Until then, good luck with your research, and goodbye from all of us at Bite Size Bio.
Bye.
The Happy Scientist is brought to you by Bite Size Bio, your mentor in the lab. Bite Size Bio features thousands of articles and webinars contributed by hundreds of PhD scientists and scientific companies who freely offer their hard-won wisdom and solutions to the Bite Size Bio community.